Well, as everybody's already said, thanks for showing up for 3 days and giving us your time, because I know everybody's time is valuable. I appreciate that, and I hope it's been worthwhile. I'm the closing speaker, so I'm between you and getting back to your room. I'm between you and going out and drinking beer or whatever, and I'm between you and dinner at Newcastle, wherever you guys are going. So if you want to, thank you. Bye. I just don't want to hold you in here longer than you want to be here. I hope it's been worthwhile being here. You've had a good lineup of speakers, and I think it's been categorized and segmented in ways that make sense in how we think about the server. I know Bill kicked it off a couple days ago and drilled pretty deep into how we think about the server. Now that the day is, or now that the session or sessions are over, feel free to ask any questions you want of me that might have popped up after you've seen one of the sessions, and you may want to get some more detail on those. And so I'd rather just do most Q&A. For those that may not know me, actually, I've been at Microsoft, be 15 years this summer. I run the Windows division, so anything that has the Windows name on it is mine. I also have the management application products like MOM and SMS and those things. Before that, I did Exchange for about 8 years, and before that, I did OS2 LAN Manager when we cared about OS2. So that was kind of my start at Microsoft a long time ago. I think I've met probably half of you or more in this room, so it's good to see familiar faces around. And it's good to see that we have international contingents here this time, as opposed to doing it in different formats. I think that's also been good, and I think the feedback's been that we should do that as we continue. Just to give you a quick recap, we think that Windows.NET Server is, a great next step on the evolution of, moving Windows into the data center from where we've come from. I mean, ever since day one with NT 3.0, we've always had a dream of, building enterprise class operating system products. It's been a pretty long road to get there. I think Windows 2000 was our first really credible operating system platform that you could walk into a customer base with and say, you should think about running some, if not all, of your mission-critical line of business applications on top of this platform. We would try hard with NT4, and in most cases, rightly so, would probably get laughed out, but we'd still try hard, and we learned a lot in that. And that's, we set out on a mission when we started the Windows 2000 project that we are going to build an architecture that's going to take us forward across whatever dimension it matters in the enterprise, whether it's the abilities dimension. So we got to put an architecture in place that gives us a chance to be at the reliability levels we need to be at, gives us a chance to be at the scalability levels we need to be at, gives us a chance to be in any of those dimensions, performance levels we need to be at. Second thing was about manageability. We, with Active Directory as kind of the foundation, cornerstone, whatever you want to call of kind of that management, enterprise-wide security, manageability aspects of the product. With Windows 2000, that was, first drop out of global directory services and the like. With Windows.NET Server, I think you've seen that we've listened to our customers very well and have added things or fixed things or massaged things or cleaned up things that just make it that much better from the standpoint of having enterprise level, infrastructure that is really the foundation for manageability, the foundation for security, foundation for application development from that standpoint. So, we're just going to continue to evolve and push forward in that space. And, I think everybody's talked about over the last couple of days that, the foundations of, great, secure connected infrastructure, just infrastructure elements of the server versus application server, application platform capabilities versus knowledge worker capabilities. That's how we think about the product when we're doing even the next version design right now. We do think about it still in those categories of things of what do we need to do to keep continuing to invest in and build out secure connected infrastructure. What do we need to do to continue to enhance, kind of our traditional departmental computing knowledge worker platform, be the best server for Office in the world kind of attitude around knowledge workers, and how do we increase our investments there and just make, RTC even better and collaboration even better and team services better and all those type of things. And then, how do we become the application platform, development platform of choice with the combination of Visual Studio, the combination of the server, and a combination of kind of the component level products we have that you build out web services of the future with. How do we keep Windows, or how do we make Windows the platform of choice? Make no mistake about it, it's all about winning the developer first and foremost. If you don't win the developer onto your platform, then you can sort of sell for a while, but if you don't get the application development support on that platform, then you're doomed in the long run. So first and foremost, it's about winning the apps onto the platform. And when I say apps, I really do mean enterprise class, high scale, mission critical line of business applications is the next wave of application platform that we want to provide. We've always done a pretty good job winning desktop applications with Windows and winning departmental type applications with Windows. But with Windows 2000 and .NET Server and beyond, we're really going to go hard after enterprise class applications and what we call, global scale computing with that platform. Secondary is, the focus on just, the bread and butter of where Windows has come from, which is departmental computing, and that's all about knowledge worker, collaboration, sharing, those type of things. And I think you'll see with Windows.NET Server, with the RTC components that'll be delivered on top of the platform, with SharePoint Team Services, the likes. It's more than file and print anymore. It's about collaboration services in the platform, whether it's real-time or traditional sharing type collaboration services. And then last but not least, continue to build out infrastructure products. So if our customers tell us that Microsoft, for me to deploy a secure infrastructure on top of Windows, I need intrusion detection capabilities, I need some kind of antivirus capabilities, you name it, richer firewall, distributed firewall capabilities, content networks in a secure way, any of those type of things, then we're going to definitely invest in putting capabilities in the product that at least enable the ecosystem around Windows to deliver better solutions on that if we don't put it in the box from the standpoint of having out-of-the-box solutions, but continue to invest in the ecosystem. Because the ecosystem around Windows today is a very broad ecosystem. There's a huge partner model around it. There's a huge ISV model around it, and businesses that have been built around it. There's product choice in every category you can think of, and we want to continue to just make that even better in the future and kind of reinvigorate that actually, and make it cool to be still on Windows and not on some other platform. And with that, I will turn it over to questions. And people, feel free to jump in, and we'll just take questions for as much as you want to take questions for. Anybody have any questions? Somebody's got to have a question. Except for these guys up front. I've heard they've been rabble-rousers the whole 3 days. But other than that, no, I'm just picking on you. Yes?
Brian, Steve Lipner the other day indicated that with the Gopher vulnerability, that it might be time to pull some stuff out of Windows.
Yep.
Have you guys been actively thinking about pulling stuff, and can you comment on what might be candidates? And is anything pulled at this time?
With every release of Windows, we do look at legacy stuff that we might pull out. So, for instance, we debate every version of Windows whether we should take NetBEUI out or not, whether we should take IPX out or not, whether we should take, you name it, old stuff. At what point in time will applications stop using WINs? Those type of things. So we look at components like that of Windows every time, because it's not about, and we always put it back in almost 100% of the time, because somebody will have an application that depends on it, or some infrastructure will depend on it, or for instance, my home automation system that I use is IPX based, so I won't let him pull IPX out of Windows because I want to run the latest Windows version. And I hate to admit that, but because when I was in the LAN manager days, it was all about competing with Novell, and we were competing with IPX, and now I run IPX in my home. I don't know how that happens, but it was and so you really have to take a hard look at. Microsoft, I think, has to do a better job of telling the industry what we're going to take out well before we take it out, so that people can plan on it. ISVs can plan on it, partners can plan on it, customers can plan on it. And so you'll see us being a lot more aggressive around that. That even goes back to product life cycles. You can now go up on Microsoft.com and actually see the product life cycle for Windows, where before, about a year ago, you couldn't even, there was no life cycle that was an official policy based on how long we would support versions of Windows and things like that. Yeah?
But just to follow up on that, that's desktop, right? You still haven't posted server.
No, it's up there for NT4 and things. There's server.
NT4.
Yeah,
Okay.
Windows 2000's up there, for instance. It's server and desktop.
Okay.
The full life cycle policy is. We've talked about, the one that got all the press was 95, because that was we actually put a stake in the ground and said we're not going to support 95 after this point in time. But then the full life cycle's up there that we talk about it. And it's currently being modified based on feedback, so you'll see some slight adjustments to it. It's not going to be radically changed, but you'll see some, actually the windows will get a little longer based on customer feedback, just because it takes longer for customers to deploy new versions of things in enterprises than they even told us initially they would deploy them. But as far as certain components based on security, if there's a valid reason to have it there, so if the usage of Gopher or FTP or you name it, whatever thing you want to think of in Windows, has usefulness in the product, then we will leave it in the product. But what we'll do is we will make sure that the default install out of the box is in a tight, secure install mode, as opposed to you get everything, you do everything, you can do anything, and you're wide open out of the box. So so by default, Gopher would be turned off in that case, because the usage model of it isn't that high. Then we could say, okay, if a customer turns it on, you just need to be prescriptive to the customer as to when they turn it on, what are the ramifications that perhaps of turning it on might be. And then also make sure if a component's in Windows, it's as high as secure possible as we can make it. So with the decision of what's out, we always go to a small set of people to start with and make a proposal. If they approve, then we go to a broader audience. If they approve, then we tend to go public. Then everybody throws up their arms and screams at us, and we end up with about 10% of what we wanted to pull out of the product being pulled out of the product because of compatibility reasons mainly. Yeah?
What kind of track do you see for 46-bit Windows as a developer platform, as a server platform, as an application platform?
For 64-bit Windows?
Yeah, 64-bit.
That's okay.
As a,
I thought maybe somebody told you about a secret project we had going on. There is a 46-bit Windows. I'm just kidding. There isn't.
Also as a desktop platform, as a product, as a Windows product versus the current Windows flavors, and in the market as a whole.
Yeah, what we think that eventually every system that ships in the world will be a 64-bit platform if a few things are done right. That doesn't mean like next year, but the world will move to 64-bit over time. And it's kind of like I have this attitude about project management. I mean, I've shipped some pretty complex projects, Windows 2000, Exchange, all those things in my career. And what I always tell the team is, I said, you got to have a Zen attitude about project management. The ship date for Windows.NET Server was set thousands of years ago. It's just our job to find it, right? Well, the same thing is true in 64-bit. The date and time when the last 32-bit system is going to be turned off in the world was set thousands of years ago. We just have to find it, right, and get there. It's kind of a joke, but it's really not. I mean, that's kind of how much effect you can have on it. Microsoft can have a big effect on it in the sense that the faster we move to high-volume platforms being 64-bit, and the OEMs moving to high-volume platforms of 64-bit will help move it. But first of all, 64-bit will become the only platform sometime in the future. I think it's many, many years, but it's going to get there. Second of all, I think there's some interesting architectures that have just recently come out, like the AMD architecture is an interesting architecture from the standpoint of high-volume processors that can dual boot 32 and 64-bit, so the compatibility issues aren't there as they were in different 64-bit systems compared to the 32-bit Pentium architecture. And so I think those will help accelerate high-volume 64-bit systems. I mean, think about a desktop machine that can dual boot 3264 and be compatible across the booting. Eventually, then it's up to how fast you can get 64-bit device drivers out there. And if the 32-bit emulation stuff really is true 32-bit Pentium instruction sets, then emulation just happens, and so your applications just work and things like that. So the roadmap we have is with Windows 2000, we had some limited edition releases of that for Itanium. With Windows.NET Server, we have Itanium 2 support in it, so the McKinley architecture is supported in Windows.NET Server. It's a separate build of the operating system. With Windows XP, we had Itanium desktop support, so if you have a 64-bit workstation class machine, Windows XP supports that. As we do the next version of, so that's the basic 64-bit support in Windows. As we do the next version of Windows, post Windows.NET Server and XP, I don't know how much was talked about in the next version here, but we'll pick up other 64-bit platforms also, like the x64 platform and those things. So we love 64-bit as much as everybody else. It's just a matter of shifting the entire ecosystem over to it from a device driver, devices standpoint, application standpoint. We're still committed to the architectures as far as 64-bit. Other questions? Yeah.
Brad, something that keeps occurring to me. Something that keeps occurring to me as we keep talking about securing the operating system is that something I found out in the last year since I've started securing my servers is that if you do that, a lot of things are harder to learn.
Yeah.
You know, and I screwed around with index server and wasted a week till I realized that I had locked myself out. And so that means if you lock down Windows, then one of the great benefits of Windows, I mean, one of the reasons I think there's so many NT administrators is that if you can play solitaire, then you're halfway to being an NT administrator. I mean, the UI makes it easy. I mean, as an alternative, there's the Linux approach, which is if you have to ask how to do it, you probably shouldn't be using our operating system, you know.
Right.
And it would be a shame if Windows went that route where there's a lot of things you should be able to do, but you stumble over the security. I'm kind of wondering, A, what do you guys do training-wise that way? And B, it'd sort of be nice if there was, my fantasy is something in the system tray that you can click that says in the last 7 minutes, everything somebody on your system tried to do but failed is because this process was doing it and it actually needed SE walk the dog privilege or something like that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's the first thing we discovered was when we secure by default locked down everything on the server is that no apps worked because they either assumed IIS was running and they didn't know what to do when it wasn't running because every machine would ship with IIS turned on, those type of things. So it was definitely a compatibility issue. So we've learned a lot in doing the whole lockdown of the server. Really what should happen is you should be able to, here's our kind of general vision for this, is that we continue to focus on general purpose computing operating system that is deployment specific. So as you install it, then as you see with Windows.NET Server and the configure your server thing, that's kind of the next evolution of choose the mode you want this server to operate in, and we'll configure it to be in that mode for you as well as we possibly can with all the knowledge that we know. And you can come pretty close on a lot of those things. Now, when you talk about security and secure by default, what happens is you want to be secure by default, and then if you do something that messes with something, then you want to be told about it. That says either this is the risk you're introducing into the system, or this is what's going to happen or not happen if you do that. So if you dial things down, what breaks or doesn't work anymore, or if you dial things up, what exposure are you creating for yourself? And that the system will get that knowledgeable about it. Today, you know, if you run the HF NetCheck tool, you know, the Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer tool up on Microsoft.com, I mean, it'll go tell you to whack registry values, you know, to like, you know, what's the anonymous, restrict anonymous registry values. It says, oh, yeah, go ahead and edit the registry. Well, that's because the system was never designed to have the capability of being secure by default and then telling people what to do around that. You'll see as we move forward that will all start to change. And, you know, for instance, I set restrict anonymous equals 2 like it recommended for me to do on my home machine. I run an Exchange server, web server on my home machine. And sure enough, you know, now Outlook didn't work talking to Exchange server. And so I had to go back and set it to 1. But and so the couplings between behaviors in the system and what happens to the system when you do that is pretty loose today, and we have to tighten that up, and we are making big investments in that area so that you effectively do have, you know, a dial. Think about it as a dial that gives you real-time feedback as to if you turn the dial to this position, what happens to the system, either from a performance standpoint, from a usability standpoint, from a compatibility standpoint, or from an operational standpoint.
I have no disagreement with any of that. All
Yep.
I'm saying is that
Sooner is better.
there's a million old programs
Yep.
There's a million old programs that are going to want to keep running.
Yep.
And it would be really nice if there were a simple way to say, okay, this busted. And the reason it busted is it was looking for this ACL, it wasn't there.
No, I understand.
Or it was looking for this particular permission, it wasn't there. Sure, you can turn all the auditing on, and sometimes it tells you something.
Yep.
But the event log's not that helpful.
Yep.
And it's not just me. I mean, I've been doing NT for 10 years.
Yep.
There are folks out there that are going to say, well,
No, I understand.
this is just too hard. And
No,
if
I
you made it
understand.
simpler to see what went wrong.
Our goal is to make it simpler. And in fact, what we've concentrated on the last few years around application compatibility has been the ability to tell what your application does from an operating system behavior, not necessarily targeted at security. So for instance, now if you use our compatibility toolkit, there's tools in there that will, if you run your application, it will tell you every API call your application makes, so that you can then look and see if there's changes between operating system versions and those APIs, and you may have to either go back. We actually use it so that we can tell what applications run so that we can make sure those APIs don't change. But if some behavior in the system changes from a compatibility standpoint, we can easily map it by looking at what APIs an application will call. Same thing needs to happen about behaviors in the system. So what things does an application do from a security aspect on the system? What does it expect, and then what does it do? And then you can be able to map those, and that's where the investments are going into. And I mean, that's great feedback. Yeah.
It's kind of a follow-up to that. You mentioned the compatibility toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems we had with 2000 was we didn't get the information to developers until a month before 2000 server shipped, and even then it was still a draft document.
Yep.
Veritest at this point in time won't say they've even seen a draft of what's going out. We're coming up to RC1. It would be nice to fix that and get out now the document for developers so they know exactly what's got to happen on .NET Server,
Okay.
to go further than just a compatibility toolkit, to give administrators the ability to do the same level of checking they had to do with terminal services to make sure apps will run multi-user, and to see the mock courses out
Right.
at RC1 time.
Right. Yeah, that's great feedback. The reason it was so late in Windows 2000 is because we didn't know until a month before it shipped. But, I mean, we didn't know everything before it shipped. I mean, it's hard to know what's going to happen until it happens, right? We can predict the future, but only come about 50% right on predicting the future. So the nice thing about .NET Server is that it really is Windows 2000 next version, as opposed to being a very big architectural shift between NT4 and Windows 2000. So we expect compatibility issues to be much less, but we've also introduced a whole new thing, which is the secure by default and all those kind of things. So we're now going through the compatibility testing on all of that and documenting that. But it's good feedback. We've got to get that out sooner than later. I agree with you on that. And also behavior changes and feature changes and everything else between the two systems. I agree. Yeah.
Back in the day when Windows supported lots of different processor architectures and so on, there was a lag in product availability. Outside the operating system, there was a lag in product availability for non-Intel x86 platforms. And I'm wondering, as we return to a model where there's going to be Itanium, there's going to be x86-32, there's going to be x86-64, and who knows what else. Are we going to go back to that model where there will be some elements of the Microsoft product line that run on 64, some that run on 32?
No.
No?
No, it's just too hard. Right? I mean, if it isn't going to be a volume platform, back in the 16 to 32-bit transition days, there was nobody really kind of knew what was going to be the volume 32-bit platform. I mean, you could sort of predict, but you had to place some bets too, right, on covering other platforms. And there was no high volume. Clearly, Pentium architecture, Intel 32-bit architecture won that one. So we're going to support high volume 64-bit platforms, but we're only going to support them if we believe they're high volume. Therefore, and it's kind of a chicken and the egg on high volume, is that if you don't fully support it with your applications, it'll never become high volume. And so we'll pick the 2 or 3 or 4 that we believe are appropriate and support them fully. So if we do Itanium, there'll be a lag time on some of the applications, but there'll be commitment to getting SQL there, Exchange there, everything else on top of the platform. And then the same thing with x64 type architectures as we move forward. I'd prefer, my perfect world is I only do one. Right? I mean, it costs a lot of money to takes a lot of investment to support a different processor architecture. I mean, it is a huge investment because you have to go through all your compatibility testing, and these architectures are so dissimilar that you have to do a complete retest of the operating system on every platform.
Okay. And a follow-up to that, I'm wondering if we should expect to see a single box and a single license cover multiple architectures, or if there will be sort of a split in the way Microsoft markets and prices its products between the 32-bit tier and the 64-bit tier.
There'll be, again, I'm going to tell you what I think my perfect world would be, and then I don't know if we can get there. Perfect world is there's one 64-bit operating system and it runs 32-bit apps, right? So I only build one thing, and I've got all the device support I need, I've got all the system support I need, I've got all the application support I need, and then things just continue to work. The perfect world never happens in the operating system space, so but that would be what I would strive for if I could. From the standpoint of licensing, if you typically what happens is that as things become higher volume, they just migrate towards the common price. So as 64-bit systems become high volume, we don't necessarily use that as a price increase for Windows. Right, we just have to recover R&D costs initially from the lower volume platform. But if 64-bit was high volume like 32-bit today, you'd have $199 Windows right on that platform. It's not our intention for the desktop, and you'd have the appropriate pricing for standard data center server, whatever on the. So it's not our intention to kick up pricing as platform architectures change. It's just as they become higher volume, they just typically gravitate towards. So in general. Let's take the Hammer architecture, an example. You buy 32-bit Windows, you buy 64-bit Windows XP, or the next release that supports that, and you just decide which one you want to run. Same price, you just buy it and run it on that box. And if you want to run 32 and 64-bit dual boot, then you buy 32-bit copy and a 64-bit copy, and you got two copies, and you just dual boot it into 64 or 32. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the future of the .NET framework? We heard that we have a .1 update in .NET Server now, and that there are only very little bits of the apps on the operating system are implemented as managed code. And the question is, what features are you planning with the .NET framework, and will in future the server apps of Microsoft be implemented as managed code?
Our goal is, in the future, everything's done managed code. Now, there's existing code bases, just like any other ISV has, but we're a very firm believer of managed code throughout everything we do. Next major release of Windows, a lot of it will be written, the elements that you would write in managed code will be written in managed code. So you could think about the shell and those kind of things would be in that environment. Office has a very big code base today that's not in managed code, but their intention are to migrate eventually to managed code. So we're a firm believer in it, and we just want to get there when it makes sense on product release cycles, including the operating system itself. So you'll start to see more and more things that aren't managed code become managed code in the next release of those products, and then even more in the next release. And so that's just a direction we're moving towards. Absolutely.
And what features do you plan for the core of the .NET framework in the future?
I'm not 100%. That Eric Rudder runs the developer division. It doesn't work for me, so I'm not 100%. I know what the release schedule is, but if you ask me about core features of that, we should probably get you the info directly from the developer division on that stuff, or else I'll speak out of something that's not true, and then they'll hate me for a month.
Okay, thanks.
For every feature. Yeah, well, it's a month per feature. Can you actually show it? Okay. Go ahead.
We've heard quite a lot about how the Windows.NET Server gives almost twice the performance, for instance, in file and print. Do you anticipate charging twice as much for the server because of that?
No. It's a good idea, great idea. Why didn't we think of that? Given the environments of late around how people perceive us as being bad people, then the last thing you want to do is add more fuel to the fire. and raise prices or things like that. So you can assume. I mean, I know pricing hasn't been set probably, but I don't know. There's other people that set the pricing of these things. But from the general standpoint, you can assume it's roughly the same price as Windows 2000, or it's not anything. We love adding more value, which means, if you look at the world today, there's still a lot of NT4 systems out there that we want to move over. There's, we want to get those Windows 2000 systems to upgrade. I want to win every one of them Unix boxes. Every single Sun customer I talk to today is asking the question of, why am I on this high-end expensive thing? Right? I'm paying these huge margins to this corporation, and I don't really get the business value of it. And they're finally starting to ask that question. I mean, for the last 10 years in the whole .com craze, everybody was fat, dumb, and happy, and we're all sitting on the beaches scratching our bellies going, God, isn't life good? Right? Well, now that the economy is doing what the economy is doing, everybody's kind of going, well, what am I spending on IT today? Right? What is my return on investment, or where my investments are going? What is my budgets? And PC economics still are very, very attractive. And as we continue to invest and make sure that we get the manageability there, we get the scalability there, we get all that there, we're a company that still believes 100% in PC economics. And we believe in the architecture, and we believe in the pricing model, and we believe in the volume model. And we're going to continue to support that with everything we do. So as customers ask the question, do I still want to be on this mainframe environment? Do I still want to be on this mini computer environment? They're really not asking those many questions about their mainframe environment, because they still have those locked up in the big high-end places. But those mini computer Unix environments, every single customer I talk to these days is asking the question, should I stay here? And if I'm not going to stay here, then where am I going to go? And I definitely want them to come down to Windows platform on Intel architecture platform, and because I can give them the economic model for that, and if I can give them the value. And the way I give them the value and keep giving them value over time is just make the next version of the operating system that much better.
Sure, but with PC economics, I mean, if you buy a Unisys 32-way server, I mean, that's a very high-end box.
Yeah.
It's comparable to the Unix machines. So at that level, there's not much difference in the hardware. It's a very similar cost.
It's comparable on a performance standpoint, but if you look at price per TPMC or any of that kind of stuff, it's much, much cheaper than it would be to go buy. I mean, if you're going to go buy a Solaris UE10K and throw Oracle on top of that, and look at what the total price of that system is. We're about a third the price of that system with a UE10K running SQL Server, and we can beat them on performance, right? So, that's the kind of economics I'm talking about. Yeah, it's still a $250,000 box or a $400,000 box or whatever, but you're comparing it to a $2 million box, right? So, yeah, I mean, you're not going to get 32 processors for $499. But it's going to be very comparable from an economic standpoint. And then it's all about credibility. Do we have the credibility and reliability, scalability, performance, all those kind of things? Do we have the credibility and managing? Do we give people headroom to continue to move up when they decide they want to move up? Because nobody thinks they're going to stay stagnant where they're at today. They're always going to continue to grow. So they want to be on an architecture that will grow with them and all those kind of things. And OEMs are getting there with the hardware architectures, and we're getting there with the software. And so we've got a very credible message. We can go in there and talk to people about the platform architecture and have credibility, and then turn around and show them an economic model that makes a lot of sense in today's times. Any last questions? When are we supposed to be done? Now? You want to do? Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to, since you got shortchanged on your video last time, this isn't the same video he was going to show you. This is a different video. But I just wanted to let you see one last video before you go that kind of sets, my frame of mind on how I think about selling and competition. This is a video that basically, I've been an engineer at Microsoft for all my life, and so when we shipped Windows 2000, Ballmer asked me to go out on the road and sell Windows 2000. So this is my experiences and how I sold Windows 2000. So I hope it shows up.
You've got mail.
Son of a...
Oh, Bill, I am your father.
Yeah, Brian. Brian, boy, I got a surprise for you.
Okay, Dad. Okay.
Come on, Brian.
What is it, Dad? What is it, Dad?
Oh, good. That's a compact desk pro running Windows 2000. Is that for me? No, that's for me.
Oh, it's like it's a 10 gigahertz or something. Man, it's cool. What do you got, Dad? What's for me?
Well, what I need from you is to get out there and sell Windows 2000.
But Dad, you gotta know, I'm an engineer. I'm not a salesman, but if you ask me to do it, Dad, I'm in.
Are you in?
I'm in, Dad.
Are you in?
I'm in, Dad.
Are you in?
All right, Dad, I'm in.
All right. Go get yourself a suit. A suit? Oh, no.
Well, here we are. Windows 2000 is only the most important product Microsoft has ever shipped. Absolutely crucial to Compact's future. And who do they send on the road with me? Some bidhead, engineering hack, who probably knows less about customers than he does about women or hygiene.
I do too know about women. Hey, you want some?
Thanks. I'll wait for the next dumpster. I can hear this guy getting fatter.
I can do this. I can get it together. I can do this. I can make it happen. I can do this. I can do this. I can do it. I can do this. I can do it. I can do it. All right, I'm ready. I'm ready. Showtime. Showtime. Let's go. Showtime. I'm ready.
Okay. Oh, so you remember what we talked about in the car?
Yeah, I got it.
We won't take
No crap from anyone.
no.
What is it? Won't take no prisoners.
We won't take no for an answer.
God, I need it. No for an answer. No for an answer. I can do it. No for an answer.
No.
Okie dokie then.
No.
Terrific. Thanks for your time. I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot.
Look at Brian, boy. It's okay. You're trying too hard. Just be yourself.
Yeah.
Well, on second thought, just act natural.
I just don't see the business value deploying Windows 2000.
Well, with Windows 2000, you get support for the latest plug-and-play devices. It has fewer reboot scenarios and blue screens for better uptime. And on compact hardware, it breaks all TPC records. And with Active Directory, you get a centralized point of management with the ability to delegate administrative tasks and control group policy at a granular level.
Whoa, you're not speaking my language, little guy. I got a Sun system that works pretty well right now.
Works pretty well. Pretty well? I guess that means sometimes it doesn't work, huh? I mean, it's not Windows 2000, the most reliable operating system around, running on compact hardware. The best the industry has to offer. Hey, imagine this. Let's say this car is Windows 2000 on a ProLiant 8500. It's humming along, running your business. And it's increasing the productivity of your operations every day. But then, all of a sudden, your app crashes. Oh my God, what do you do? What do you do? But don't worry. You've got Windows 2000, and it fails over. The system cleans up. Your data's saved. The CEO of your company's high-fiving you when your business is growing. Your customers are happy. They didn't even know your server was down. You're making billions of dollars, and you retire a young and happy man with a beautiful wife, half your age, and 2.5 kids who all get to go to Harvard. Now, let's say you're running on Sun. You know, this is Sun. But you need a more expensive car. Okay, let's say you're running on Sun. Things are going pretty well, huh? And then Christmas season hits. Mommy, Daddy, I want Pokemon cards. I want Beanie Babies. So, okay, honey, let's go on the web. But suddenly,
Your web server goes down. There's too much traffic. You can't get it back up. It's crashing. Oh my God, you're losing orders. The customers are leaving in droves. Your business is going down. In fact, you're going down in flames. Your business is in trouble. The analysts are selling off your stock. They're on the air going, another dot venture went dot splat today. Your investors are going, oh my God, we're losing money. The young yuppie VC is in the corner puking his guts out. Oh no, you get sued, and then you get fired, and your wife leaves you for some guy running Windows 2000 on a ProLiant 8500, and she takes the Harley, and there she goes with the Harley, and all you can do is drown yourself in drink. Oh, the agony! Oh, the agony! The agony! Your life is over! Your life is over! And all because you had something that worked pretty well.
Okay. You convinced me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We all know Solaris sucks. Your wife's lover's gonna be pissed as hell. But you've made the right decision. Thank you very much.
All right. So that was a little internal thing we did for the Windows group, but it gave you kind of an idea of how we try to position the two products. So we tried to make all the points in that video, even though we tried to make it pretty funny. So with that, unless there's some last burning questions, I can stick around for if you want to do it one-on-one. But thank you for 3 days here. I hope you've gotten out of this. Please, if you didn't get out of this what you intended to get out of it when you showed up and you spent 3 days here and you're at all disappointed with anything, give us the feedback, because we really want it to be, I mean, it's your time. We want to get you educated on the product so you can go out and do the appropriate reviews you need to do the appropriate things you need to do around the product, and feel a lot more intelligent about the product than you did 3 days ago. So if we didn't achieve that, then please give us the feedback, because we will modify this in the future and really try to make it something that is worth your time and helps you do your job better from the standpoint of what you have to do in your job. So with that, thank you for 3 days, and enjoy your dinner tonight, and enjoy the weather, because it's only 3 days that we get weather like this in Seattle. Thank you very much. All right.